What happens when the weight of loss comes when you do not have the support you need to carry it? When the people you love most are suddenly gone and you're left to make sense of life without them? In today's episode, we explore what it means to grieve without a guide and how God meets us in our darkest valleys. Welcome to It's Your Story to Tell. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm so honored to introduce you to a friend and a new coach on the It's Your Story to Tell platform, Janice Leonetti. Thank you so much for being here, Janice. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. And thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be able to share my story and hopefully have it help people in some small way.
Well, I know that it will because it is by the power of his blood and the words of our testimony that people will be freed. And so that is what we love to talk about here at It's Your Story to Tell is people navigating the hard and coming out on the other side with freedom. And then it's great when we can take it a step further and start giving back all those tips, tricks, tools that we learned along the way so that they can go further. It's like just putting people on our shoulders and helping them to go to new levels in their purpose. Why don't we start back from that moment where you experienced an unexpected loss and how that impacted your life?
I am a sibling of seven, and I'm number six out of seven. And out of nowhere, I get a call, or actually, my grandmother gets a call. I'm up visiting her with my dad and my little sister at the time. And it's my mom. My brother's calling and something happened to her, and he's telling us we need to get home. And so thankfully, my grandma only lives a few miles away. So we were able to get there.
So tell me a little bit about your mom and how she made your life perfect.
We didn't have a lot growing up. I remember like even just going into the game closet, there was like two games. That was it. And so she would be like God's unconditional love. She loved us so well and so differently for each one of us that we almost feel like we each had a different mom. And it would be things like you'd see in the morning we would have breakfast. She would make each one of us what we wanted for breakfast. We didn't have like one breakfast. It'd be like French toast for one person, cereal for somebody else, maybe pancakes or whatever. But, because of the age difference, we're getting up at different times. And I think she just loved us and loved kids so much. So each of us are same core values, but all uniquely different. Yeah.
That is amazing. I know as a mom, that is definitely my goal to be able to see each of my children and their differences and how they need to be corrected and how they need to be applauded and what are their favorite things. I know in my own life, unfortunately, I was not as effective as your mom. And it's been something that I have been growing into and learning because my trauma from my past had me living in fear and survival mode, which makes it really difficult to pick up on those things. I love that your mom was able to give you that. And so here you are in this moment, though, where you're losing your mom. And I'm assuming your whole world has been turned upside down. So how did you navigate going from having this person who was your cheerleader and your supporter and giving you all of this strength and bravery to go and do things as this 12-year-old to where you find yourself just moments later? What if healing didn't start with fixing, but with presence? In a world overwhelmed by pain and crisis, people don't need more advice. They need someone who can hold space, someone grounded, compassionate, prepared. Sacred Presence is a 6-week intensive that equips you to walk with the hurting through a trauma-informed, spirit-led lens. Whether you're a ministry leader, coach, parent, or simply someone who longs to show up well, this is where you learn to bring peace where there's chaos, hope where there's heartbreak, and wisdom where others only see wounds. You'll walk away with practical tools, spiritual depth, and the confidence to be a healing presence in any room. This isn't just a training, it's transformation. Join us, be equipped, and become the safe place someone's been praying for. Sacred Presence, preparing healers for trauma care, can be found on the itsyourstorytotell.com website. Go and get registered today.
It was, she could hit it all. And so I think that helped a lot because our family had no idea how to navigate it. So my dad's mother, my grandmother, was helping quite a bit raise us because my dad wasn't really around. And now that I know things, I can see why this happened. But my grandma was very conditional love and not as warm. You know, we knew she loved us, but it was more about works and it wasn't the relationship as much, even though we all adore her and love her. It
Sure.
wasn't anywhere near the same as what we had with our mom. And they didn't tell me that. So I wasn't prepared. It was like, this is not my mom, you know? And so uh, we go home, and I later found out they did that and then unplugged her because she had been brain dead from an aneurysm. And I thought it was weeks, but it was only a few days. And so in the meantime, we were going to school, that kind of a thing. And so I ended up living with my dad, I think about a month or two later after he got married with his girlfriend. And then they wanted their honeymoon time. And so then I went and lived with them with my little sister, but also in between all that, had to go to a different school. So I just started a new middle school, loved it, and then got moved to a different school. So that even affected everything.
You can't really change much more in a child's life that you experienced in that pretty short period of time. I mean, you said about a month or so for your dad remarrying. Was it that quick? And how did you feel about?
We knew about my dad and his girlfriends and all that kind of a thing. And he would just pop home every once in a while and then leave. And so that was normal for me. It may not have been normal for my brothers. It might have been very different for them. So the girlfriend was my brother's friend's sister. Yeah. And so yeah, it's
Complicated, right?
very, yeah, this is my whole life actually.
Well, yeah, I'm with you. At one point in time, my husband and I had our Wi-Fi name was It's Complicated. So I am tracking with you on all of that.
Good. Yeah. So I heard my mom before she died on the phone talking to somebody about divorce, which back then women weren't supposed to get divorced or people weren't supposed to get divorced. And so I said, "Oh, mom, is that for you?" And she goes, "Oh, no, no, it's a friend." So I kind of knew, you could tell something was coming. And so my dad was great. I mean, he wasn't a horrible person or anything. He was great. He was fun. He had a bad temper, and so if he'd yell and stuff, you're just like, ah. So I've never been spanked or any physical kind of discipline. Just him yelling was enough for me. But he wasn't horrible about it either. It's just like if he'd get mad about something, he'd get mad. And it wasn't all often, really. Other than that, it was just a lot of fun.
So you move in to this new situation. You have a stepmother. That can be a big adjustment. How was that experience for you?
Crazily good because she's the same age as my oldest brother. It was like having a sister. And she didn't try to be my stepmom. She was my friend and taught me how to be a girl, makeup
Mm,
and clothing and stuff like, even though we didn't even have a lot of money, every once in a while she let me wear some of her clothes because she had some nice clothes. And so she was awesome. And she saw me, she knew me. So when I was going through like some depression and things like that, she would come into my room and say, "Hey, honey, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing, I'm fine." She goes, "No, you're not." And then we talk, and then I'd feel better. And I could talk about my mom to her, which was such a gift. It didn't offend her, it didn't put her off or anything. She was just there.
that's not where the story ends.
No, no.
So, what next in the story that was hard for you to navigate?
So I get married at 18 and move further away. And in that time, because she was younger and my dad was really good looking and charismatic and stuff, but he knew based on his lifestyle, she wouldn't be around for long. So she left. And so he
Mm,
called me when I was living in Medford and he was upset. And I said, "She's my friend. I love her. I'm not going to not talk to her." And so he got really mad, but he got over it. And so we moved back. And what was so neat about it is I came ahead with my daughter, who was a baby. And while my husband at the time was still working, and so I could get a job up here and get income going. So I stayed with my dad and he had an apartment. And so he was so excited. He fixed up his front room with a bed and everything for us. And And because he didn't live too far from my grandmother, his mother, when I was working, because he could work from home, he took her down to have her diaper changed at my grandma's house, and then he'd
My
bring her
goodness,
back.
that's
It was
amazing.
so cute. Which is so neat because, fast forward as my grandma got into her 90s, my daughter was one of her caregivers. It was just
Wow.
beautiful. Beautiful how things just come back around. And so then things like I had to have my teeth pulled. And so my dad would pick take me to have my teeth pulled and then watch my daughter for me when she was like 3 because I had the wisdom teeth pulled. And then he just sat there with her and she would call and grab keys. It was awesome. It was so cool because he never got to know any of his other grandkids because of his lifestyle. My brothers just didn't want to have anything to do with him. And so he married again, and the wife called me one time. I think I was home after work or something and said, "Something's wrong with your dad. You need to get over here." And so I found him. He had died in the garage, which is where his office was. And she didn't have any idea what to do. So I called the ambulance. I called his priest. I made the phone calls and then went home, and my husband was there with our daughter. He picked her up from school and stuff and after work and just went in my room and cried.
How old were you when that tragic death? Wow, so 10 years later after your mom, and so you've faced a lot of things up until 22 years old. You're having to navigate a lot of really hard things. What were the things that helped you or that God brought into your life to help you through each of those times?
He didn't know how to navigate it either, right? And so we were just doing life. And so, like when holidays and stuff would come around, it was fun, but there was no feeling, it felt like.
Mm,
Kind of a thing. Like I loved it, I was happy, but I didn't feel anything. I don't know if that makes sense. And then I
yeah.
I decided one day I just wanted to be a buyer at a big company, local company. And so I just set my mind out to do that. And you have to have a college education, and I didn't. And I know that was God now I look back because I became a buyer without a college education. But along the way there, he put people in my life that believed in me and helped champion me even though it was really difficult to get that promotion.
In some ways, it sounds like you coped by just staying busy, setting goals for yourself, achieving things, and just going on one thing to the next. Is that
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Because that's what you do, right? That's life. You just when you don't know
Yeah.
God especially, you just do life like everybody
Right.
else.
Right. And you don't give yourself the opportunity to feel. So it makes sense why you're present and you're happy, but it just kind of fades away into the next thing that you have to get done. I lived so much of my life achieving and just going on to the next goal. Never wanted to take time to because my feelings felt like so overwhelming that if I experienced them, I didn't know if I would be able to keep going and keep achieving. So I was stuck in this really hard place. Ultimately, that led to so much anxiety and overwhelm, but I didn't even know that there was another option. I just thought this is what I have to do. This is how I survive. And I'm so grateful, just like you. There's people when I look back that were there that supported me, and God was with me even when I wasn't really with Him. I was a believer, but I wasn't going to him for support or solutions or how to navigate all of this. But he was still there in those moments
Yeah, that's so good that you
until,
say that. Yeah, that's so good you say that because I hadn't thought about this, but we went to church up until my mom died. And then when I moved with my dad, we started going back. We were going to church. It was a Catholic church, but it was a rules church. So I think that was reinforced to also like, hey, you just do your life, right? And
right?
yeah, it's all about I don't know how to structure. It's all about structure. There's no relationship. It's just rules, and this is what you do, and it's not like that anymore. This is how good I love about God. My neighbor's a key person in a local Catholic church, and I was going to a prayer meeting with her and some other ladies that they've been with together, and it's so different. I'm so thankful. They read the Bible, they know the Holy Spirit. It's beautiful. I wish it was like that when I was growing up, but I think things would have been different.
Yeah, I definitely can identify with that somewhat legalistic view of religion and Christianity, or Catholicism, and wanting to try to be perfect and to look like I had it all together, and which meant just shoving everything down. So I had shoved pretty much until in my mid 30s, where there was no more shoving. I reached capacity and really hit a breaking point. Was there a place in your life? And I probably had many breaking points in my life, but I would figure out my own way through it versus actually dealing with things at a very core root level from the traumas that started in my childhood, because it was like they just kept precipitating. And so it wasn't until my mid 30s where I had no more capacity to make a way through it. Did you ever come to a place like that? What was the shift for you?
That's interesting. Mine was in the mid-30s too. So I love it. Um,
Awakening for women, I think, in the mid 30s.
I think so.
You're
What
too tired.
yeah,
It's
I
like,
think
I can't.
yeah. You don't have that teenage like adrenaline
Mhm.
anymore.
Yeah.
For me, it was the things that I'd shared earlier in our conversation. Those are highlights of my life. There is so much in between there that I can't share because of the people that don't want their stories shared in my family. So I was busy also being the one helping and solving and leading. So I didn't have that luxury of being able to stop and feel things very often. I wish I would have, but I know exactly what you're talking about. If you sat there and you spent time there, I don't know if I would have left. I would have probably got stuck
Right.
there. And so I ended up was single with two kids and sharing the parenting responsibilities with their dad, which was nice and such a blessing. But I met my current husband, and that was my gift. He loves me not like my mom loved me as a mother. I mean, he loves me as a husband and my best friend, but that same unconditional love. So, despite the things he was experiencing with me, because I warned him ahead of time, I said, if you get together with me, you're not going to have your Mayberry RFD life anymore. I mean, there's stuff happening in my life all the time, and I don't cause it, it just comes. And he's like, okay. And so he chose to stay and survived through all, I shouldn't say survived. He led myself and my kids, but also my siblings too, and my grandma through things because of his family. They are a more wholesome family. You know, parents been married a long time. They're when you need them, all that kind of lovely people, just great people to be around and such an example of marriage and family was a gift. So being with him, once I knew I could trust him, because of course I have to trust and gradually put my wall down, I got to the point where I went to counseling and a bunch of things came out. And I was really a terrible person to him. He says I wasn't, but I know I was. And he stayed. He stayed. He helped me through it.
What a beautiful gift. It's amazing when people show up in our life with that kind of presence and they're able to love unconditionally, hold space for you, not judge you. So different from the rules based, the get yourself in order, come put together. And I just love that. My turning point was a domestic abuse advocate, and it was the first person that I was really open and honest with because she was willing to share her story and how she got out of it, and now she's coming back to help people. And honestly, this is why I'm gonna get emotional. The mission that I do, because it's so powerful when people are willing to take their experience. And even your husband, it wasn't the traumatic experience, it was what he had learned through a loving, safe, nurturing space that he was able to step into yours, which is so beautiful because that can be really hard when you haven't experienced great hardship, that you can have a lack of understanding and that leads to judgment. And I just love that your husband was able to gift that. I had another woman in my life, Shelly, and she was just always there, always showing up, always inviting me to things. She saw things in me and knew things about me because of her story. And when you have some things like addiction, and for me, mine was a love addiction, a people addiction, that I just wanted love and connection so badly that I would just look in all the wrong places because I didn't value myself. So she had some of that in her life. And so she knew without me ever saying, she could see things in me. And she just stayed persistent, and God used her to really help humble me in the most beautiful way, to recognize my perfectionism, my judgment of others, that I was sitting over here thinking, well, my problem's not as bad as that. But that was my way of coping and protecting myself, and to find value was to really devalue other people, which is hard for me to say, but you can't heal but what you're not willing to reveal and acknowledge. And I know I'm forgiven for those things. God loves us and he died for us because we were going to get it wrong. And history shows we're a whole lot of messed up people, including all of the amazing characters in the Bible and their stories. Most of them didn't come out of perfection. In fact, Jesus rebuked the Pharisees who were showing up in perfection. And so coming here and bravely sharing, Janice, I am just so thankful for you and for your willingness to use your story, because God equips us if we are willing. All of those hard things will be used for his good. So when the scripture talks about that God uses all things for good, that means there's things that weren't good, but that with him, they can be transformed. And so in our next part of our episode, we're going to be talking about how you are using all of the gifts along the way that were hidden, that God's revealed, and how it has brought you to this point to be able to walk alongside others who are going through some of the darkest days of their life. All right, you guys, come back and check out part 2, where we're going to talk about Janice and the work that she is doing to help people find inner healing.
All right.
Yes, I know. God is so good.
You know, that last thing you just shared about God, like with rebuking the Pharisees, I had this new revelation. We were at the prison ministry and we're doing the woman caught in adultery. And so they were talking about how Jesus was basically getting after the Pharisees. But God is such a God of restoration despite where you are, if you're a Pharisee or whatever. What I saw was he was standing and he was teaching. And then they came and brought the woman. They didn't bring the man. They just brought the woman because they were trying to make a point. And they're operating in their rules, mentality. He bends down. He gets out of his authoritative position as a rabbi. He goes low, waits till they're done. And then he stands and he doesn't rebuke them. He just says, hey, whoever is sinless, go ahead and cast the first stone. And I think it's an invitation. I think he's saying, hey, you guys, look at what's happening. It's up to you. If you should understand what I'm saying right now, right? And then I was reading on the commentary when he was writing in the sand. And the other time that the finger of God was writing was the 10 Commandments. Wow. Isn't that cool? So I don't know what Jesus was writing, but I just feel like there's something around that sometimes I feel like if God's a God of love and using things for good and he's restorative, he still has accountability and all those things, right? But I really do feel like Jesus is more invitational than correctional. And I think we miss that when we're reading his word sometimes because we get so hung up on the world.
Absolutely. His story is always multi-directional. There's something, no matter where you're at, that he wants you to see. So if you're the woman sitting at the well, caught in adultery, there's safety and protection and love and compassion and getting down on your level and letting you be seen and also protecting you. And so that you can see there is a way forward. And then he tells her to go and sin no more. But that is not the first thing out of his mouth. And then if you are the Pharisees, there's this opportunity for you as well to be invited into something new. And so he's always wanting to reveal things to each of us. And they're going to be convicting. My goodness. But you know what is so amazing is when Jesus says it, it's in so much love. I mean, I have experienced so many times, like daily, He is correcting me because I am asking him, reveal to me. I want to transform my heart. And if I can't see it, I can't do anything about it. And so I want him to continually increase my awareness so that I can turn from it, right? There's this saying, it says, when you know better, you do better. And for a lot of my life, I was not knowing better because, again, if you're silencing your feelings, you're silencing the voice in your head, you can't pay attention because I had so much negative things going on in there that I was just like, put it back in the box, put it back in the box. And so I didn't get to experience transformation. So God is a God of transformation. He's a God of second, third, fourth, fifth chances. It's never too late. And when we change, we have the power to bring change in others.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we make it harder than it is.